I'm Dr. Anthony Harper here in Boise, Idaho, with Idaho State Senator Tammy Nichols. Thank you, Senator Nichols, for joining me on this very crucial topic about the Boise, Idaho City Council in defiance of the Idaho law regarding the flat flag policy. They're flying a gay pride flag and not allowing other people to fly their flags. What is the Idaho State Legislature saying about this issue?
Yeah, so we do have a defiance issue that's going on here. The state legislature passed two bills in regards to flags this last session. One had to do with government buildings and flags that could be flown on those. And then the second one has to do with what types of flags are allowed in our public schools. Because we've had a lot of families, a lot of individuals that have come to us very concerned about what they're seeing transpire. In fact, the flag bill for the government buildings that is part of our conversation today was actually started by a citizen that was brought forward through the Idaho GOP meeting as a resolution and passed through the body of the Republican Party first. And then that was transferred over into a piece of legislation this last session and passed and signed by the governor. So it's something that the citizens actually brought forward to begin with before it was even brought forward as a piece of legislation. So we do have defiance that's going on in Boise, primarily, unfortunately. And that is because the Boise mayor has decided that I guess the laws don't apply to her. And so she has made her choice about flying not only the gay pride flag, but also another flag that has to do with organ donation. And it's not that I'm against, organ donations or anything like that, but we streamlined what flags are appropriate because this is taxpayer money that these buildings are funded by, and the people that work there are funded by taxpayers. And we want to make sure that we have continuity that is transcribed throughout our government buildings in the state, just like when the flag law for the schools goes into effect on July 1st, we want to make sure that we streamline and have continuity and that we're not discriminating against any certain individuals or anything like that, that we can all get behind. Of course, the American flag like I have back here, our state flag, the cities can fly their flags. Military flags, that's all well and good because that's something that encompasses all of us. But when you're picking other flags out, there's going to be some discrimination with that. And we wanted to make sure that we streamlined all of that, got rid of those issues where people are feeling like they're being left out because they don't fall under a particular flag or category, and streamline that process. But unfortunately, the mayor has made a choice to defy the law, and so here we are.
Well, from my understanding, there is no enforcement for the Idaho State Legislature in dealing with the Boise City Council or any group of people on this matter. What's next for the Idaho State Legislature and bringing more enforcement to this issue?
Yeah, so that's been a question that's been brought up. And what's so interesting about that is when we pass laws, when government passes laws for government, the expectation is already there that government will follow government's laws. We all take an oath to our offices to uphold the law, to uphold our Constitution of the United States, our Idaho State Constitution. We all take an oath to do those things. And so the expectation has already been there that that is how things will proceed. So if government passes a law that government's supposed to follow, the expectation is government will follow it. But we're finding that we have some instances like we have right now with the Boise mayor, where that government is choosing not to follow the law that was passed for government. So unfortunately, that means that we're going to have to find some consequences. Now, that could come in a form of another piece of legislation where we strengthen the flag law that was already passed, or it could come in form of monetary, where the state could take away some of the sales tax or a percentage of the sales tax that the city of Boise gets. So there are mechanisms that are available for the legislature to be able to use. And in my discussion with other legislators, that is going to be the road that we're going to take. I mean, we know that she's breaking the law. She's doing it on purpose, and thumbing her nose at the legislature. So unfortunately, that means that we'll have to do something either when we get back into the next session, which will be in January, and to facilitate some consequences because of the defiance.
Well, that's a long wait. Not till January. Can there be a special session of the state legislature to not only deal with this, but some other outstanding issues?
Yeah, so right now, we've had other citizens that have asked to be able to fly their flag that they want flown, because if we're picking and choosing flags, then, other citizens should be able to come and say, hey, we'll fly our flag now. So I know that there's been a Israeli flag, I think, that has been asked for. There's been an Appeal to Heaven flag that's been asked for. And so we've had some of those citizens that have asked the city to fly their flags, and they've been denied. Citizens could actually bring about a lawsuit to, because of the denial, because the mayor is picking and choosing which flags. And so that is something that could happen now if citizens wanted to form together and bring about a civil lawsuit.
So the likelihood of having a special session of the state legislature, is that possible in the very near future with the governor? I'm assuming the governor would have to support that.
Yeah, we would have to have the support. I doubt that that's going to happen. It does cost money to have the special sessions, and they're usually reserved for like big emergency type things. It was hard enough just to try to get in a special session during COVID. With all the stuff that was going on at that time. So this is probably not going to be one of those instances where a special session is called, and we will have to, wait until the session starts for next year to be able to start that process on what we're going to do with the city of Boise. But citizens can continue to email, to write, to ask for their flags to be flown, because that will that is something that the citizens can do. And like I said, and if any of them want to file a civil lawsuit because they're being discriminated against, then they could go ahead and do that.
I want to mention here that I have contacted the Boise City Council, the mayor's office, and they continue to refuse to respond to my questions. I mentioned that I'm with Intermountain Christian News, the media, but the mayor's office, the city council office, they don't want to respond, even to my emails. Is that something that you have heard about, that the mayor's office, city council will not respond to their questions?
Yeah, I've had some other media entities tell me that they are not able to get a response. I know that they have one city council member that has come out. I think she was the one that voted against passing the resolution that they did. And she has been on a few things. I think that's Councilwoman Willis. But I have heard from other media sources that they have a really hard time, especially getting the mayor to talk to them or to respond.
Okay, back again to this issue about the sales tax issue and maybe withholding some part of that for Boise City. Can that be enacted very soon?
It would have to be done during the session as well. So yeah, so we'd have to do that during the session. So a lot of this is going to come down to the next session, unfortunately. But, everything that is transpiring is just giving us more ammo, if you will, to be able to institute what's needed during the session, or, like I said, to bring about consequences, including taking away money from the city. And then it also gives us ammo to be able to look at future legislation that we pass. Because we have some legislators that don't like to see necessarily consequences or teeth in a piece of legislation. And so now this is a good example of why we need to start doing that more often. Even though, like I said, the expectation is that government will follow the laws that government passes, we now have a clear example where that has not transpired. And so, we might, as a legislative body, have to start changing the way that we pass our legislation, even if it is government's laws for them to follow. We might have to start putting consequences in our legislations, our pieces of legislation that way. And I can't imagine that this is the first time in Idaho history where a government individual or a city or what have you has, defied the law. I'm sure there's probably been other instances. I'm actually kind of curious to find out what has transpired in that regard. But if it takes just putting some extra teeth into the piece of legislation, then I guess that's what we'll do. And now we have a great current example of why that might be needed.
It is troubling for a lot of Boise citizens, especially the Christian community, the Jewish community. This is in violation of their belief, their religious belief. And I was thinking, Senator Nichols, about the real rainbow. A lot of people may not understand. The gay pride flag only has 6 colors of the real rainbow. The color that is missing is indigo. But there is a website called therealrainbow.com for people to learn more about the history of the gay pride flag, actually the gay pride issue, and about the founders of all that. Have you heard about the realrainbow.com website?
I haven't. No, I'll have to look that one up.
A great resource for people to know the history of gay pride. And it's disturbing for a lot of the religious community. And so I'm sure there's a great anticipation to find out what's going to be happening next. You mentioned about the lawsuit possibility. That could be happening soon. Do you know of any individuals that are planning to have or trying to find legal help on this matter?
Yeah. I don't know of anything that actually has been filed yet. I just know that there's been talk amongst some individuals about taking that route as a possibility. So, we'll see what happens in the next little while with that. But I have heard of talk that could be a possibility.
Now, I'm curious about how the city council could think that passing a resolution or voting on this issue to make the gay pride flag an official flag could really so-called fly in this issue. Excuse the pun, but the issue. But so is the gay pride issue going to really fly on this matter? How can they? Yeah. How do you think that they could justify this?
Well, there's a few other things, and we're not just seeing that. This law was also passed in some other states, with Utah being one of the places there, and the Salt Lake City mayor there also is defying that law. Now, Utah did put a fine in theirs. I want to say, I think I remember it being like $100 a day or something along those lines. But the same thing is happening in Utah over in Salt Lake. So this isn't just, happening here in our state. It's happening in some other places where similar laws were passed. But yeah, I mean, it's, another thing, and I've heard inklings of this too, and I don't know if anything's transpiring yet, but there has been talk about a recall on the mayor. That is another option. It's one that takes a lot of effort and work, but it is part of the process that citizens do have to be able to do a recall. So that's a possibility. And, I don't know if anyone else is looking at running for Boise mayor coming up, but this would definitely be a great campaigning tool to to use to run against the mayor, about the mayor defying, the law that the legislature passed. So there's a lot of other things that could come into play that citizens do have, the ability to do. But as far as the legislature goes, we'll have to see. And, like even what I was just saying, where Utah does have a fine in their law and the mayor there is still defying it. So it's one of those things where, you don't put a provision in as far as like a consequence or something goes, and the mayor's defying it here. But Utah passed a very similar law. They did put in a provision for consequences, and the mayor there is still defying it. So you have this issue that's transpiring in other states, and even though there was consequences in one piece of legislation and none in the other, it's still happening. So that just means that and the thing is that nobody should be above the law, right? Like the law is for everyone. Doesn't matter if you're the mayor or just your average Joe, living in a small town or what have you. The law is for everyone, and just because you don't like what the law is, or what the law stands for, and it doesn't align with your ideologies, doesn't mean that you can just not do it and act like it doesn't exist. So we're seeing a few different things that are playing out, but when we get back into session, we'll definitely be taking this issue up. It'll probably be one of the first things that comes out of the legislature.
So I'm curious about how often it might be that there are religious groups that believe the Idaho law is a violation of their religious belief.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, definitely if we have, groups or organizations or churches that, say, hey, well, what about our flag? What about, this? And they're being told, no, we're not going to fly that, because I know that there's been a few people that have actually gotten a letter back from the city saying that they're not going to fly their flag. So yeah, I mean, it could be looked at as a discriminatory factor where you're allowing one group or organization to have their flag flown, but you're not doing the same for the other. And that was the importance behind the law, is that we streamline everything down, so we're not picking and choosing groups and organizations and people and all of that sort of stuff. So we get everything back down to the basics, right? Go back to the basics of American flag, state flag, city flag, military flags, the ones that we can all fit under, so that we don't have this, discriminatory factor coming into play. And this group feels uncomfortable, and this group feels discriminated against, and this group doesn't feel like they're being heard or seen. So just get it all right back down to the basics of the ones that we all fit under.
I guess the last time we had a problem in Idaho with a state law was during the COVID virus time, where the governor and others were demanding even of churches to stay at home, not to worship together. What was your knowledge of that happening here in the state of Idaho?
Yeah, we did have that happen here in the state of Idaho. In fact, up in North Idaho, there were some churchgoers that were arrested up there for singing hymns out in a parking lot or a park or something. I think it was a parking lot. So that did happen here. And yeah, that was an unfortunate time period that I know a lot of people just want to get past and move. But, it's something that we need to learn from, and we need to make sure that we take what we learn from those experiences and put things into place so that we don't go through that again. Because that was an unfortunate time. And every state had crazy stuff going on in it. I mean, Idaho wasn't as bad as some other states, thank goodness, but we did definitely play our part in some of those things, like telling people to stay home and not go to church and not worship, and then arresting them when they are outside and in a parking lot singing.
It was a very troubling time, and I don't know that the Idaho governor, Brad Little, ever apologized to those churches, to those religious groups that had been arrested.
I don't think there was a lot of apologizing period going on by the people that were making those decisions, local, state, or federal. I haven't seen much apologizing going on for any of those things, and that's unfortunate because a lot of people were impacted, people died, and there were some, and all the information that we've had coming out since COVID, just shows us exactly how really wrong we were on a lot of those things that were put into place, that were placed upon the people without their consent, or pretty much forced upon us to do. So that was a really, really not good time at all, and there hasn't been a lot of apologizing.
So what do you see happening here in the near future? I know in light of there's supposed to be Gay Pride Month, the month of June. And what happens if we get overrun by gay pride supporters? Wouldn't that create a crisis for the state?
Well, one thing I want to bring to your viewers' attention is that in the legislature this last session, we also passed a resolution in regards to Traditional Family Month. And Traditional Family Month falls between Mother's Day and Father's Day. And so I actually just wrote an article about it for my local paper about celebrating Traditional Family Month and why that's so important. So that's something that people can participate in. They can celebrate Traditional Family Month however they would like. But that resolution was also signed and passed this session, and I voted for it, of course. But it's to really bring about the importance of the traditional family and how that is the bedrock to our civilization, is the traditional family. And that's not to downgrade or downplay, other types of family structures where single family members or divorced or, whatever the case may be, whatever. But it's to really emphasize that the traditional family is the bedrock of our civilization and is one of the pillars of our society, and it's a very important part of the structure. And we're hearing all sorts of things now about what's happening, even on our birth rate, how our birth rate is not keeping up, and that we're going to start having some major issues that transpire because we have people dying and we don't have enough births going on, whether we're, just not procreating like we used to, or because through abortion, unfortunately. So, but we're going to start having some major ramifications that are going to transpire because we're not keeping up with the birth rate of a 2.1 children to every. That's what we need, is 2.1. That's the magic number. And we don't have that happening. And so we're going to start seeing some major problems that are going to come into play because of that. So we do have Traditional Family Month, though, celebrating the traditional family in the state of Idaho. And like I said, that is for the time period between Mother's Day and Father's Day. So people can definitely celebrate that, embrace that, and give it the due diligence that it should have, because it is a foundational part of our civilization society, and it's a very important part. So instead of worrying about the other stuff, Pride Month or what have you like that, if that's not your cup of tea, celebrate traditional families, because that is part of this time period too.
Okay, for more information, how could people learn about you? Do you have a website, and if people want to ask you questions?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of different options. So you can find my website. It's nicholsforidaho.com. I'm also on all sorts of social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, under Nichols for Idaho. And then if you go to my website, you can sign up for my Substack, which is on there. And so I put out information and articles and different things on all sorts of issues that's there too. And you can also contact me through any one of those platforms. So Nichols for Idaho, Nichols.
Okay, finally, I mentioned the Idaho Freedom Caucus. What has been your involvement with Idaho Freedom Caucus, and tell us about the history about that. And I know you recently had a press release about the Boise City Council, as I mentioned before, defiance against the Idaho State Legislature.
Yeah, so I'm the co-chair of the Idaho Freedom Caucus, and along with Representative Heather Scott. And so we co-chair that. We have public and private members, but we work together on legislation and work to get really good things, passed, stop bad things, and really try to inform the public about what's transpiring. So we're already working on legislation for next session. We do have a Substack, and so we do put out a lot of our stuff in our Substack. So you can also sign up for that one too, which is just under Idaho Freedom Caucus. But yeah, just follow us, and we're also on social media under the Idaho Freedom Caucus, so you can follow us there too. But we're just trying to keep the public informed and make sure that we have involvement within our communities, and we'll have some fun things coming up. We will have a calendar contest. We did our first one last year. It was guys, gals, and guns. And so we'll have a theme for this next year that will be coming out soon, so people can be part of that. It's just kind of fun, but it's also to help raise awareness about certain issues too. Like last time was the Second Amendment. So follow us on all of those too. We have a lot of great members that have worked on some amazing stuff, got really good stuff done. We, as far as our Freedom Caucus went, we passed over 60 pieces of legislation that were signed into law this last session. So some really good stuff that transpired with our caucus.
Well, thank you for Senator Nichols for joining me and sharing all this so important issue about the implications of the flag policy of Boise City Council and other cities that are in defiance against the law, and for the religious community that may be watching this, about the implications for your religious group in defiance of your values. And I know that a lot of people are eager to find out what happens next in this legal issue. This battle seems to be a battle for the soul of not only Boise City, but for the soul of America. And once again, your website is?
NicholsForIdaho.com. So NICHOLSFOR Idaho.com.
And as I mentioned before, the ones that want to know more about the real rainbow, it's therealrainbow.com. Thank you, Senator Nichols, for joining me and our viewers on this so important topic, not only impacting Boise City, but the nation as well.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on again.
I set my rainbow in the clouds, and it shall be a sign of a covenant between me and the earth. It shall come about when I bring clouds over the earth, that the rainbow shall be seen in the clouds, and I will compassionately remember my covenant, which is between me and you, and every living creature of all flesh. And never again will the water become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the rainbow is in the clouds and I look at it, I will solemnly remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. And God said to Noah, this rainbow is the sign of the covenant, solemn pledge, binding agreement, which I have established between me and all living things on the earth. Is this the real rainbow? Let's find out.
To discover the roots of the flag, go no further than the story of Gilbert Baker.
Gilbert Baker, who created the rainbow flag, was such a unique person.
He was genderqueer before there was genderqueer, with a full beard and makeup and skirts and high heels.
Former San Francisco supervisor Jeff Sheehy and Charlie Beal, an award-winning art director for film and TV, both knew Gilbert.
Gilbert was a true artist. Gilbert was a true artist.
True artist. But the pride flag has 6 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, indigo, and violet. That doesn't look like the real rainbow to me. Hey Google, how many colors are in the rainbow?
There are 7 colors in the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet.
Is this the real rainbow?
Gilbert was a true artist.
Gilbert was born and raised in Kansas. As a child, he loved art and fashion design, which in a conservative state caused some problems. At one point, Gilbert got drafted into the Army.
He just threw down his gun and refused to carry it. So they made him a corpsman. They wouldn't kick him out, but they made him a corpsman, so he was a medic.
That's how Gilbert ended up in San Francisco. Once here, he came out of the closet and met Harvey Milk. In 1978, Milk asked him to design a new symbol for the LGBTQ community, just in time for Pride.
The first thing he decided was that this new symbol should be a flag. Up until then, people had used the pink triangle, which was put upon us by the Nazis, and though some people were trying to reclaim it or rebrand it, Gilbert thought it was a downer.
Gilbert was drawn to the power of flags. He felt a rainbow would cover everyone. The artist and a group of volunteers then went to work.
They created these 2 magnificent 30-foot by 60-foot rainbow flags that went up on June 25th, 1978 at United Nations Plaza in San Francisco, and the rest is history.
Today, the flag is recognized around the world. In 2015, a year before Gilbert died, he presented one to President Obama. It was in thanks for lighting up the White House in rainbow colors when gay marriage was legalized. The flag has become a symbol of equality as well as sanctuary.
Places where just that little rainbow sticker on a cafe or a store means you're safe here, regardless of your sexual orientation or gender identity.
Dante, who is queer, takes nothing for granted. The student plans on advocating for more equality, especially in communities of color. That said, it's time to raise a flag and celebrate Pride.
Gilbert was a true artist.
True artist.
Interesting enough, the original rainbow flag had 8 stripes. The current one only has 6, and that's because when they started to mass produce it, they couldn't find hot pink. And so you took out hot pink and turquoise just so they could mass produce the flag, so now it has only 6 stripes.
As the appearance of the rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day, so was the appearance of the surrounding radiance. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory and brilliance of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell face down, and I heard a voice of one speaking. At once I was in a special communication with the Spirit, and behold, a throne stood in heaven, with one seated on the throne. And he who sat there appeared like the crystalline sparkle of a jasper stone, and the fiery redness of a sardius stone. And encircling the throne there was a rainbow that looked like the color of an emerald.